GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a given period of time. These goods and services include groceries, clothing, cars, healthcare, house cleaning, and/or hair salons and barbershops. GDP includes all items produced in the economy and sold legally in markets. The U.S. has the largest GDP, standing at 13,843,825, which is 3 times the GDP of Japan and 4 to 5 times the GDP of Germany. What does GDP consist of? GDP is the sum of consumption, investments, government spending, net exports, and income. C, which is consumptions, is the spending on families on goods and services, which does not include buying a new house. Investments is the spending on capital, equipment, inventories, and structures, which does include buying a new house. G, which is government spending, is spending on goods and services by local, state, and federal government. Net exports is the spending on all exports minus the imports. And income, which is represented by Y, is the income of all families, which is calculated by the equation Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. Next, we have a pie chart that represents the 2010 percent expenditure. We found this information on the website www.bls.gov/CPI. 31% of this pie chart is represented by housing, 18% is represented by insurance and pensions, 12% by entertainment, 8% by personal health care, 10% by education, 5% by transportation, 4% by pensions and Social Security. Apparel services represents 3%, alcohol and smoking is 2%, reading is 2%, food is also 2%, healthcare and cash contributions are 1%, and miscellaneous items are represented by 3%.
Next, we will discuss nominal and real GDP. Nominal GDP values the production of goods and services at current prices. Real GDP values the production of goods and services at constant prices. An accurate view of the economy requires adjusting nominal to real GDP by using the GDP deflator. The GDP deflator is a measure of the price level calculated as the ratio of nominal GDP to real GDP times 100. It tells us the rise in nominal GDP is attributable to a rise in prices rather than a rise in the quantities produced. This chart compares two similar items, ice cream and sorbet. As shown in real GDP, the base year in 2007 remains the same, while the quantity changes. Moving right along to the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI. This is a measure of the overall cost of goods and services bought by a typical consumer. It is used to monitor changes in the cost of living over time. How do you calculate CPI? First, you have to fix the basket. This determines what prices are most important to the typical consumer. The Bureau of Labor Statistics identifies a market basket of goods and services the typical consumer buys. Next, you have to find the prices. You find the prices in the basket for each period of time. Then, you have to compute the basket's costs. To do this, you use the data from the prices to calculate. Next, you choose a base year and compute the index. You select a base year, which will be considered the model for years thereafter. To compute the index, divide the price of the basket in 1 year by the price in the base year and multiply by 100. Lastly, you compute the inflation rate. This is determined by the allowance from the preceding period. CPI is not perfect. There are some problems, which include substitution bias. This is when the basket does not show how comparative prices are altered. For example, consumers often substitute expensive items for cheaper ones. It does not include the change in cost of living due to substitution bias. For example, Great Value at Walmart can be compared to Kellogg's brand at Walmart. Another problem is the introduction of new goods. The power bought goods do not influence in the production of new goods. The last problem is unmeasured quality changes. This means that the value of the dollar depends on the quality of the goods, even if the price of the goods does not change. The price and the value of the dollar are proportional. If one rises, the other rises, and when one falls, the other falls.
Now let's look at price indexes. Price indexes are used to correct the effects of inflation of two different times. We choose Kobe Bryant and Julius Erving to explain the effects of inflation of two different times. Price indexes dated back to 1913 to the present may be found at www.bls.gov/CPI. We found that Kobe Bryant earned $26.1 million per year, and Julius Erving earned $2.8 million per year. We know with the table of the consumer price indexes that the price level in 1975 was 53.8 and in 2010 is 214.537. Now let's check how much Kobe Bryant would have made in 1975 and how much Dr. J will be making in 2010. In 1975, Kobe Bryant would have made $6.6 million and in 2010, Dr. J would have made $11.2 million per year. So if you compare the difference between the amount of money made in 1975 and the amount made in 2010, Kobe Bryant makes more money than Dr. J. But when you consider the value of the dollar, it's less today than it was in 1975. Two important differences between the indexes that can cause them to diverge. GDP deflator is a nominal GDP over real GDP times 100, while CPI is the current year's price of goods and services over price of base year times 100. The second difference is that the GDP deflator compares the prices of the goods currently produced to the prices of the goods produced in the base year, while the CPI compares the prices of a fixed basket of goods over time.